I saw a video. Do you go by Joe or
Joe.
Joseph?
Yep, perfect.
Joe, okay. I saw a video of you on the link that our friend Susanna sent me, and in it you were talking about your desire to save the Rex Ranch, which is admirable. You were very seemingly emotional and impassioned about the whole thing, about the whole project. Tell me how you got to the point of deciding that this was something that you wanted to do.
Sure, that's a great place to start. I am a kid from the Midwest, the American Midwest. I grew up in Michigan. I went to school in Indiana. And there was kind of a transformative moment for me where my world opened up. I think for lots of people, they have a moment like that where they discover for the first time that the world that they knew is much smaller than the world that exists. And for me, that moment was around 1999 when I saw the American Southwest for the first time. And it was so different from any place that I had ever seen, in my short life, that it really had an effect on me.
How old were you at the time?
I must have been 20.
Okay.
Yeah. And a friend of mine, his mother lived in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and we had an opportunity, 6 of us, to climb into a tiny car and do a road trip from Evansville, Indiana to Santa Fe, New Mexico, and I just thought I was going to the edge of the world. I'd never gone that far west. But driving and talking and seeing these landscapes was a really social experience. And I found myself in Santa Fe just being really drawn to the idea of the Southwest. There was something about the relativity of space to humans that was so different from the Midwest and so different from...
How many people per square mile?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. And the East Coast I was familiar with. I had some family on the East Coast, so I sort of had a sense of that part of the country. But when I first saw the Southwest, it just really had an effect on me. And over the next few years, I was drawn back, and I really enjoyed, for example, once I made my way to California, my favorite thing to do was to drive back through the Southwest to the Midwest. I just found it intoxicating. And when I came to Southern Arizona, I think that I had in my mind the idea of a very static place, something that was maybe like the Colorado Desert or the Mojave Desert in California. And I just really was blown away when I came down to the Sonoran Desert by how alive and vibrant it was. And once I started exploring these sites along the I-19, I really felt like, why don't people know about this place? Any other place in the world that would be almost a UNESCO World Heritage Corridor, you have these incredible 16th century missions, you have military ruins, you have, an average age of the buildings that was much older than most places in America, and that didn't even include the Spanish and Native American history. So that's, what I was fascinated with was contemporary compared to what actually happened there. And I think there's a spiritual sense of humans having been here for thousands of years that to me is very palpable. And I think it attracts people for a number of reasons, but there was a clear attraction to artists here. And I've always worked in the arts ever since, I was a kid. I've been involved in the arts, and I chose to dedicate my life to arts organizations. And
so you're more of a mentor than you are an artist per se.
Yeah.
Or do you consider yourself an artist?
No, not at all. I am one of those. I'm one of those fallen people that started by being within the arts as a participant, and then quickly understood that my role was going to be somehow what they call, I think, a shadow artist. Somebody that really was committed to helping artists find spaces or find opportunities, or to promote. Most heavily, what I do is help them promote their own work. But down here, people are attracted by this place, and over the years.
When you say down here, what's the scope of down here?
I'm really talking about Santa Cruz County. Okay. To me, that's as soon as you get south of Tucson on the I-19 and the landscape opens up a little bit. That's the part of right. This place that I think is most undiscovered, most misunderstood. and it seems to attract a certain type of person. I mean, there's a really eclectic group of individuals that live here. Some of them not full time. Obviously, you know, it's a great destination for people from other parts of the world who want to spend
why
a
they
few
call them
months.
snowbirds,
Yeah,
you know.
snowbirds,
I mean, it's a worthy thing to avoid, is the snow.
Yeah, avoid that snow at all. I'll never forget when I drove away from Michigan, I think it was somewhere around Kansas, where the snow disappeared in my rear view mirror,
Yeah.
and then it was California bound the
Yeah.
whole way, and I loved it. But, you know, this place is, the desert is a very particular landscape, and my work with Sundance over the last decade has been all about a place. Robert Redford started Sundance in a very particularly inspiring place that he had found. He famously, you know, tells the story of buying several hundred acres for, I think, $700 at the time. And from that, he not only created the organization that he envisioned, but he created a magical kind of place for people to gather and have fellowship and communion around ideas. And so in a way, it's a religious experience of sorts where people are sharing values and they're stimulating each other just on a very basic human level. And the fact that there was always a place to go back to year after year it gave it a real special sense. And I thought with Rex Ranch that you had asked me what it was that I wanted to accomplish, and Rex Ranch is a special place. It's already a special place. We're not making it special. It's been special for well over 100 years.
But it's about to not become special.
That's right.
Or it's about to become unspecial.
Yeah, it's, you know, people, it's very interesting because there are two types of people when I begin to tell them about the idea, or if they discover the idea of what we're trying to do, which we're just calling Save Rex Ranch for this moment. Save Rex Ranch is really two parts. The first part is we can't do anything with the ranch until we save it. If we're successful saving it.
Because it's not yours, you mean?
Yes, that's
okay.
right.
All right.
Right now it belongs to a bank there is no one at the bank that's ever set foot on the property.
Really?
So it's a very American story. It's a real tragedy from our economic, you know, struggles of the last couple years, the real estate bust. There are properties like this, I'm positive, all over the country, and this is just one distressed property in a portfolio of holdings that a company owns, and they're not bad people. They just they don't want to carry a property. They're not going to develop it for any business use. So they were willing to work with us in a very unique way, which was, you know, right now, it's Sunday, I think the 10th of November, and we are in escrow on the property, but our opportunity to buy it will expire on the 16th of December, which is just about 35, 40 days away. If we lose that chance, then I don't know what will happen to the property, but the property is in very bad shape. And the two responses we usually get, the first response is, that's a really interesting idea. Tell me more about that. The other camp looks at our idea and says, you're absolutely crazy. You know, it'll take millions of dollars to renovate the property. And I invite people in the second part of that response to come out to the property, and if they have expertise that they could lend, you know, to our understanding of how to redevelop it, it would be welcomed, because, you know, we're using the resources that we have and we're scrambling on a daily basis to meet this deadline.
Okay, but you've seen the place, a lot of people,
Yeah.
I mean, in its current state.
Yeah, I was just there yesterday.
Okay.
Yep.
And so as you look at this place, as you just look around, you can see some things that are disintegrating.
Yeah.
What inspires you to move forward with that kind of, you know, I mean, there are some real challenges. Let's say you got the money to buy the place.
Yeah.
And to save it, and I don't know, create an institution.
Yeah.
You know, called the Save the Rex Ranch Foundation.
Yeah.
or whatever it's going to be called.
Yeah, we have to decide.
But so what inspires you to take this place and mold it back into a useful, fabulous place?
Well, the community inspires me. The people that live in this area, I think, are some of the smartest, most interesting, eclectic people I've ever met. And there are limited ways right now, and I'm not speaking as an insider, but I am speaking as somebody that has a relationship with the area that goes back 10 years. You know, I did own property in Nogales for 7 years. Some of my best friends in the world live here, and I've made it the point of my life to come back as many times as possible. So I feel confident that I understand that there's something missing from their lives, which is there are very few ways to gather in a community setting and really experience something like a concert or a performance or maybe a reading or a screening of a film. You know, there are no movie theaters in between Tucson, Green Valley, and Nogales, and that's a big stretch of highway. And I know from talking to people how many people love cinema here. So the birth of the idea was just imagining, almost like Field of Dreams, to be honest, imagining people driving down that amazing dirt road, crossing the Little Santa Cruz River, you know, coming up to the Rex Ranch, parking, maybe taking out a blanket, a bottle of wine and some food, and sitting out under the stars and maybe watching a movie together. And it's just that simple. It's like...
So if you fix it, they will come?
I think so, and I also think that they will be a huge part, the community will be a huge part of telling us what can we do with a space like this that's actually valuable to their lives. For instance, do they want classes or do they want performances that they can enjoy a little more passively? You know,
so
we're going to find out.
Is the Rex Ranch attractive because of the facility that it could be, or because this place has a special meaning for you in some other way?
Well, I think that there's a lot of tension, and there always is as the world modernizes, between people that want to see things stay preserved, so to speak, and those that want to see it developed. And when we announced this idea very, very organically, we did not push this at all, but we set up a petition that just said, let's try and save this historic property. You know, we know that buildings on the property date back to the 1880s. We know that Josiah Jostler, a famous Tucson architect, designed one of the buildings there. And we also know that it has, you know, very, very deep roots with the indigenous community because of its location in the Gila River Basin and along the Santa Cruz. We know agriculture took place there. We know ceremonies were a part of the tribal life of this place, you know, 500, 600 years ago. Yeah. So in that sense, there's a spirit there that I don't think you could recreate very easily. And this is a unique opportunity. I mean, anyone from a business standpoint that would look at a 50-acre property, even in the disarray and condition that it's in, a 50-acre property with 35 buildings for $725,000 in 2013
it's a large house, and
yeah.
The Rex Ranch is certainly well more than that.
Yeah, and I guess, for example, if we tried to find a blank canvas to start this idea, in other words, if we went and we found 50 acres and we designed it specifically for the idea of people living and working there on projects, there's no doubt in my mind that would be a $4 to $5 million undertaking at a minimum. And so we have this unique opportunity. So I think Rex Ranch is sort of calling for us to do something with it. And I really do believe, I've talked to some people here this weekend, and it was sobering, because I think we're the last best chance at something happening with the property. It's clear how many people had tried before us, and there were some legal entanglements with the chain of title to the property that prevented people from being able to actually secure it. And I know that there are people that were very frustrated, that did a lot of work to try and save it and get in there and stabilize it. But we're sort of the end of the line, and I think that's why the bank was willing to work with us in this unique way.
Interesting, okay.
Yeah.
And do you think that you can overcome those obstacles?
Well, I'm a huge optimist. I mean, you know, people have really tried to damper my enthusiasm by being very pessimistic about what's possible, and I find myself having to dig deep. And fortunately, the great people that I'm working with are also extremely optimistic. So no one would take on a challenge of this type if we weren't fully determined to see it through. And so yeah, I do believe we can. And I'll tell you where we're going to succeed. Volunteers are going to be more important to this project than the money. So the idea of having people come once we stabilize this place, having people bring their own expertise, having them bring their own skills, things we can't even imagine, coming together and being a part of something a little bit larger than themselves, that's what's going to fix these buildings. Working with the university in Tucson, and this is one of the great innovations that I think we're bringing to the table is, if you study architecture, if you study landscaping, if you study the natural botany of these lands, we can offer you a 50-acre field study program unlike any other in the world. Are you interested in ancient architectural techniques, or not ancient, but historical architectural techniques of construction engineering? Great. We have buildings you can study. You can study the decay, you can study the possibility to fix them. And quite honestly, what's happened to the Adobe buildings on the property is pretty interesting, because over the years, there's been a mishmash of repairs that have been done.
Right.
And as people have introduced artificial materials to the repair process, they've actually made things worse.
Yeah.
The beautiful thing about Adobe is that it breathes perfectly with the environment, right? It allows the right amount of moisture to escape, the right amount of moisture to keep the materials, you know.
Well, it is the earth.
It is the earth, yeah. So as people have layered in cement or tried to patch it with stucco or plaster or other, they've introduced materials that didn't belong there. We want to strip those away. We would love to have students out there. I could just see it in my head, you know, 8 or 9 students working together, pairing and restoring a building of that type. I think it would be a profound experience for them too. Get them out of the classroom and give them a chance to come down and help us.
Okay, well now, you obviously see this as an organism, as a new rebirthed organism. Tell me what's going to happen. I mean, you know who's going to be doing it in your mind. You see certain things happening.
Yeah.
Who's going to manage that? Are you moving out here?
We do not want to become invisible for, say, 2 or 3 years while the place is being renovated, and then suddenly have a coming out party and say, we've done it. No, we have to immediately engage with the community and provide a service. Otherwise, we're really not doing what we've announced we want to do. So the plan right now is that we believe if we're successful, the exciting thing is at 11:59 p.m. on the 31st of December, we would take legal possession of this property. That means that starting in the new year, we would be able to have crews beginning the process of analyzing how we're going to renovate. And we're going to do it very patiently, bit by bit, building by building. It's not going to be fast or easy. It'll take probably 2 to 3 years to fully restore the property. There are some big challenges. For example, there's a real eyesore with some mobile homes that were brought into the property a few decades back. They're in terrible shape. We want to get those out of there, stop, you know, we've got a lot of chemicals on the property we need to get rid of in the proper way. You can only imagine a barn filled with 100 years of chemicals, what's in there. You know, we don't want that to end up in a landfill.
Right.
We definitely don't want it to end up in the desert. That's one track. I think that I'll probably be taking the lead on that, and what I'm hoping is that Susanna will take the lead immediately on creating public programming, and we think on July 12th we can open for business with at least 10 residencies that are available to either artists, designers, thinkers,
really?
or scientists. You know, so we're actually accepting applications right now. So if you're interested in the residency program and you go to rexranch.org, you can give us your idea, and we would love to be processing those applications immediately after the first. Because, you know, obviously we think it's a pretty big deal to be a part of the first class of Rex Ranch.
Okay,
so.
now talk to the fellow or the woman or the couple or even the corporation or foundation that's going to give you the bulk of the $700,000 that's necessary.
Do you know these people? Can I get in touch with them?
No, you're talking to them, you know,
Yeah.
via camera right now.
What would I say to them?
What would you say to them?
Sure.
What would you like to say that would inspire them to back your cause?
You know, I consider myself a citizen of the world. I try to do the right things, and I try and support things that need support. And certainly I would never make a value proposition to somebody that this is the most important thing in the world right now for our financial attention or to put your philanthropic energy into. But I would say this, I think it's a great return on your investment. In other words, of all the things that people could support, I feel that this one is going to pay back in huge dividends. You know, the idea that we could find...
To the community?
Yeah, the community. If we've done our job correctly, think about this. An arts organization could be birthed in a matter of 45 to 50 days, and that arts organization is already starting from a footprint of being extremely healthy. And why it's going to be healthy is because it's going to have the equity and the asset of owning the place where it exists. And that's not very common. We know that the economy fluctuates. We also know that giving to different things, the arts and sciences, also fluctuates over time. And I'm thinking 20 or 30 years ahead. I want to make sure that Rex Ranch never goes through a distressed period in its existence that resembles what it's just been through. If you walk around this property, you have a sense that the property is basically telling you, I can't, you know, endure much more.
Right.
And I don't ever want that. I don't want this organization to struggle in the future. And I think the idea of an endowment right away is a very important step to preserving its security moving into the future. But more than anything, the asset of the property itself will be a great footing for this organization. And I would just say that to anyone who cares about the relationship of a community to a space like this. In other words, can you imagine if the Presidio had been turned into an apartment building in Tubac? Or could you imagine, which it really could have, if the Department of the Interior hadn't swept in and saved the Tumacacori mission? You know, these things happen. There are wonderful examples, if you want the tragedy, of places that have been lost forever. And you can't recreate a place that has the patina of Rex Ranch. You really can't. It's almost impossible. And so if you're interested in stimulating a place for people to be able to bring their ideas, I just read an article that reminds me of this, which is the first TED Talk was a complete failure.
Oh, really?
And the topic of it was they were demonstrating this very new thing called a Macintosh computer. They couldn't get anyone to pay attention to the idea of TED. You know, imagine people walking around saying, who's this TED guy? You know, why should we care about this TED guy? Well, TED wasn't a guy, he was an idea, or it wasn't even a male idea, it was a unisex idea. But the first Sundance Institute lab in 1981 was about 30 or 40 people gathered in a place, and Morgan Freeman was there, Robert Redford. You know, imagine if you were a part of that at the very beginning, how proud you would be looking back at that, or how influential that might have been in your life. And I think that this is an opportunity. You know, the worst thing for us is the tranquilizer effect, where people look at what they're doing, they look at our rally.org fundraising page, and they say, these guys are never going to do it. Someone else will help out, I don't need to help. Well, you do need to help. You know, if you do think it's a great idea, we need your help now because we only have so much time.
So how does this work? Let's say somebody has, you know, in your other video that I watched,
yeah,
I heard you say, you know, if you got $5 or $10, that's important.
Oh,
we need to, you know, get you to give that $5 or $10. So you need that to happen right away. What happens to the $5 or $10?
Yeah, so we are partnering with a really great company called Rally.org, and Rally.org specializes in crowdfunding for any type of cause. So the one that most people are familiar with in terms of this online fundraising landscape is Kickstarter, and we would have loved to have used Kickstarter if we could, but they don't allow you to purchase real estate. It's against the terms of service.
Okay.
And right now there are about 2,000 of these sites that have jumped up in the last couple of years. A UC Berkeley study just released estimates that crowdfunding is going to be a $4 billion economy this 2014 calendar year. So this is a real thing. And yes, your $5 or $10 is not insignificant. It's actually the most significant part.
Why?
Well, because as we go out and we talk to either businesses or corporations or hopefully individual philanthropists that are saying to us, how do I know the community wants this idea? The way that you can show us most directly that you want to see it succeed is by placing your name on our page and putting a few dollars
So
against
you're voting
that cost.
with your money.
Yeah, you're voting with your money. And really right now, if I lived in this area full time and I was looking at this project and I was asking myself, why should I care? I would basically ask a question. You know, we've brought the opportunity to save Rex Ranch to the community. And the community is voting by either helping us achieve this goal or not. And if we don't achieve the goal, it's something we think about. So don't think that we're not aware that this is an incredibly tough thing we're up against. But also we need as many people as possible to jump on this cause so that as we're seeking larger funders that might be able to help, part of what we use to show them that this is a viable idea is saying, look, we've got several hundred people. We have 600 people that have signed this petition. We have just over, I think, 30 or 40 people, though, who've actually become a part of the fundraising effort. And we need that number to keep going up as fast as possible. It's the way that we're going to find the right people that might be able to give a little bit more, and that will start the momentum. And I'm not at all nervous. I've seen these campaigns start very, very quietly, and there's always a tipping point, and it's the most exciting moment, and I can't wait to get there because there's a tipping point where suddenly somebody looks at it and they say, I can't believe it. These guys might actually pull this off. And that's a contagious energy, and we need that energy sooner rather than later. So whatever we can do to get it to that point, I'm really pushing for. Yesterday I spoke at the Tubac Historical Society. They hosted a talk with an author about local ranches and the history of local ranches, and they were very kind, and they gave me a few minutes at the end to tell people about what we're up to with Rex Ranch. And they asked me, how much do you have to raise and how long do you have to do it? And I gave them the answer. I said, we have to raise $725,000 plus a little extra for the closing costs by December 16th. And the room gasped. I mean, audibly, they all gasped. And I said, that's exactly what we're up against. And a woman very kindly asked me, what's your plan B? And I said, I just bought a lottery ticket. And I'm not exaggerating when I tell you that's our plan B. I mean, we don't have enough time, unfortunately, to come up with any alternative to the approach that we've put together. But this will continue to grow. People will tell us if they like the idea. They're asking all the right questions. We've decided that the money that we raise, whatever dollar amount, we're going to ask the people that have given money to vote on what to do with it if we're not successful, which is a possibility. And there are 3 very simple options. Rally.org has given us a magic button where we can hit it and automatically refund all of the money instantly to everybody that's given it. That's certainly an option. The second option would be if the community said, why don't you donate the funds that you've raised to a local nonprofit, and we could give a list of those organizations and they could pick the one or a group of them that they would like the money to go to, and we could split it and donate it back. And then the third option, which is a little bit less likely, but we'd like to put it forward, is if you really believe in the idea and you think that we should continue to pursue it, then we could take this money that we've raised and we could try and find another property. But to be honest, there won't be another property like Rex Ranch. It's the specificity of this for me is driving it. And when I need a little fuel or a little wind in my sails, I go back to the property to walk it and to see exactly what we're trying to accomplish. And it does fill me back up with the motivation because I'll tell you, if you can stand at one quick story, a woman who heard our talk at the Tubac Historical Society followed me in her Jeep yesterday as I raced out to meet a television crew at Rex Ranch. She was just too curious and she had never seen it. And it turns out that she had run a small dude ranch herself in a previous life.
Really?
And so I was giving the TV interview, and over the shoulder of the guy, I see this woman walking around the grounds, and I had no idea who it was. So obviously when it was done, I introduced myself, and she said, I was just so curious that I came out here. And she had a ton of expertise, and so she was pointing out things that she thought could be fixed very easily and things that she thought would need some more expert craftsmanship. That's the way this project is going. People are following us on the frontage road to go out there and take a look at it, and I love it.
I've actually been engaged in multiple conversations with friends of mine who would say, well, I would do this, and I would do this, and I would do at the ranch, you know, after having dinner there or beforehand.
Yeah.
There's a wonderful little spot in the ranch where you walk in, at least it used to exist when we go and have a dinner there, you know, and you'd walk into this little courtyard area and there's a fireplace right there.
Oh, yeah.
And it was just wonderful to be able to just sit there and have a glass of wine or something.
Yeah.
It's just a wonderful energy that exists right there.
Yeah.
Good luck with this.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you for your interest and for talking to me about it. I really appreciate it.
And if you know anybody that you think would be interested in this project, forward this the video link to them and let them know about the project. And if you can, take a moment and donate $5, $10, $100, $500, $725,000. Nice to talk to you, Joe.
Thank you so much. Thank you.